Buonasera a tutti.
Good evening to you all, and welcome to this meeting. This evening, we grasp one of the challenges launched yesterday by Mr. Prades. The courage to say I must be regained day by day, moment by moment. We need something which makes us rediscover our value, our worth. We need somebody who tells us, you are worthy, you have a value. We need to recover our dignity. One of the most beautiful exhibitions of this meeting state how decisive it is to meet people who are able to trigger the courage of the I. And this evening, we're going to talk about this, rediscovering one's own dignity. And we will do this listening to three different witnesses, three guests. We have some of them in presence here, starting from ladies first, Marigona Oliva. Please welcome her. Marigona is an educator, a teacher, and she is still one of the young girls of the Imprevisto of Pesaro, a reality we know very well because she has this association in Pesaro has been a guest of many editions of this meeting, and they help lots of people get back their lives. Marigona is going to tell us about her experience and what happened along her path thanks to this encounter. And then we have another guest here, Mr. Mario del Verme. He's the coordinator and responsible for the sports activities of Scholas Occurrentes, Italy. Scholas Occurrentes is an international organization of pontifical right. He was created and presided over by Pope Francis. It is a network of various educational activities, and it is present all over the world. They were also invited here at the meeting 4 years ago, and thanks to their activities, well, the activities have been growing. And Mario this evening is going to tell us what it means for their work to help so many people all over the world to grow and to develop their own humanity and dignity. The third guest in another corner of the world, and we will please welcome her, is Alena Choperskova. She's the editorial director and communication manager of Takìe Delà. I hope I have not mispronounced this, but I don't know Russian. It may be translated as "so things are." It is a beautiful reality, and she will tell us more about that reality. It's a network, it is an association coordinating social initiatives and charitable initiatives in Russia. It gathers and it tells stories through their website, stories of people who in different situations and in different sectors are rediscovering their worth and their dignity, especially after very dramatic situations. These are our three guests, but we have a fourth guest tonight. I'm going to show you a video, and this is our fourth guest. I leave the floor to the this society, Scholas tries to include to lend a hand, to hug, and not to assault, and recognize that no person is a no. No person is a no. All of us are a yes. A yes for ourselves and for all the other people. A yes which we have to say. All the people have a meaning. The real globalization is a polyeder, where we try to find unity, but each of us maintains his or her own peculiarities. This is the challenge of Scholas Occurrentes, trying to find which is my peculiarity, my richness, and share it with the others, because I have a meaning. And in this way, we are going to globalize ourselves in a human form, not in an animal form. Our utopia, the utopia of all of us, making up Scholas, is creating with this education a culture of encounter. In people, we can unite ourselves, enhancing the differences in cultures, not to reach uniformity, but rather harmony. So the unmistakable voice of Pope Francis talking to you, talking about Scholas Occurrentes, and he said very meaningful things, recognizing that no person is a no. All of us are a yes. Trying to find out the peculiarities. All the people have a meaning. Let's start from you, Mario. What does it mean for you to work so that people can discover and reconquer this meaning? This video seems to have been made precisely for today and for this year's meeting. When I came to know Scholas, this yes was moved once again. Then I met Pope Francis during a journey in Iraq. But Scholas was born in 2000 during the crisis in Argentina, the crisis of 2000. It was an economic, educational, social, political crisis, and Pope Francis had an intuition. He asked two friends of him, the two world leaders of Scholas, to take the heart of 20 young people. He told them, call 20 people coming from different religious beliefs and ask them, what's happening to you? Pope Francis says, a new culture can stem from a pain. And with the course of time, this has become an educational demand. Pope Francis says, we are going to change the world if we change education. What is education for Scholas? What is education for the experience of all of us? The education, as Pope Francis indicates, education needs to be inhabited. You need to inhabit education. You need to live inside education. You need to use whatever you have. If you don't use all your resources, those who are looking at you realize you are not putting yourself entirely in what you're doing. It is not a question of doing. It is a question of being. It is a question of looking at the other person. And if you realize this, you feel changed. We always say to our young people, imagine that a teacher enters a classroom and he or she tells you, how beautiful you are this morning. That young person will feel differently because that I, that self, will not be the self that existed earlier. If you tell somebody how beautiful you look this morning, it means that you're taking away all the difficulties from that person. I just want to mention three words related to Scholas. The first word is listening. Pope Francis says education is a classroom with no walls. All the participants are resources. He mentioned the polyeder. This is what education is. It is a complex geometrical shape with many facets. Each person can create an encounter. If you are listened to, you can create a point of encounter. And this is a turning point, which becomes culture. The taste and the pleasure to recognize the others. If I don't have this pleasure, I only carry out formal education. It's not really a hug towards the other person. The second word I would like to use is creativity. If you feel you are listened to at a certain point, you think that somebody really loves you, and you start to be creative. You start thinking, combining various languages, the language of the body, of the heart, of the mind. And Pope Francis speaks about the language of the heart, of the mind, and of the hands as something which is harmonious. When he says the three languages are fragmented, it means you don't have the unity of the I. It is no longer myself. I'm just a piece. I am the mind because I need to think at that moment. I am the heart because in that moment the heart is grasped, so to say, and I am the hands working autonomously. When this fragmentarity is broken, I can say I. And you can say I only when you realize that that specific encounter becomes a gift. Gift is a third word. And you start to celebrate the gift. One starts to celebrate the self. When we went to Iraq with Pope Francis, the Pope told us only 10 days before that he was going to Iraq. We had two encounters. The first one was in Erbil, in the Muslim University of TU, where we met 30 university students and their professors. The topic is, what is education? However, the language was difficult. Communication was difficult. My English is not so good. I had my friend Manuel helping me with the language and with communication. We wrote one word on the blackboard, I. And we showed Icarus, the heart. Starting from that heart, we asked all the students, what does it mean for you to say I? Which word may we pronounce when you pronounce the word I? That was the biggest miracle I saw in my life. Because in that very moment, the culture of encounter was born. Namely, one starts to get involved without thinking about anything else, without thinking about all the problems, not thinking about what you have to say, even using your eyes only. The second thing I would like to say about Iraq refers to the encounter I had with the Pope. It was a moving meeting I had. The day before, we had met a group of Iraqi young people, and we asked them whether they had a question, a specific question for the Pope. 3 of them met the Pope the day after. He was very tired. Instead of 15 minutes, he had a 1-hour encounter with them, 1-hour talk with them, and they spoke about their difficulties, lack of freedom, lack of safety, lack of employment. They exposed their fragilities to the Pope. And those eyes, I still remember them, were the eyes of a person who looked at them and looked at their souls. Just a few words. I remember a Muslim guy giving the Pope a flag with some blood on it. And he said, receive this flag with the blood of my Christian friend. I give it to you. The Pope took the flag. He kissed it, and he answered, no, this is not mine. It belongs to your story. So the I is within an us. I is within a people. The more it is inside a people, the more you have roots, and the more beautiful this I becomes. This is what is Scholas Occurrentes.
Ascolto, creatività.
So listening to somebody else, creativity, gift, the heart of Icarus, as you mentioned. Aliona, what are the key words of Takìe Delà? If you had to tell us what you are and what you do, what would you say?
Здравствуйте еще раз. Большое спасибо за
Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me here and having given me the honor to speak to you today. Our most important words are human life and dignity. Takìe Delà is a media network talking about the stories of these people. Together with our listeners, we try to live, to help, and to develop humanity. Until some years ago, journalism in Russia was totally different. It focused on business, cinema stars, but the media didn't talk about the life of people in Russia, especially outside cities, whereas we are focusing on citizens' life in Russia as it is. And we also want to help these people. Our website is one of the many projects that we have. We have a foundation called Serve Aiuto, Help is Needed. We help different associations through this foundation. Today, we are helping more than 300 associations working with poor people, families with many children, youth with diseases, homeless. Our journalists travel throughout the country. They look for funds, and they also tell stories in realistic terms. Therefore, they are giving a voice to these people. These people tell us how they live, what problems they have, how they have been helped, how their life has changed today. And we ask our readers to make donations. These donations are not allocated to the people directly, but they are allocated to foundations so that they continue working on their projects so as to increasingly help different people, an increasing number of people, because there are hundreds of thousands of people who are under these situations and therefore can be supported. In some cases, for example, nurses or caregivers have been recruited, for example, when children or the elderly must go to hospital and need to take surgeries. Maybe resources are also used for palliative care so that people don't need to be hospitalized, but they still can be treated and stay with their families. Doing our job, we have collected more than 20 million euro thanks to our readers. It's an enormous amount of money. However, the most important thing for me is not money. In Russia, there are many problems, social problems, very complex ones. But sometimes they are stigmatized. Many people despise other people, especially poor people or those who are in miserable conditions, the homeless. Some people think that they are the victims of violence, but they need to blame themselves for being victims. So we have seen and told many stories like this. And we have seen that when people see real problems and understand real problems of people living in misery, there is empathy, there is compassion. So we try to involve our society. We try to change it so that society can become more humane. It's not enough to solve social problems just by giving money. Not at all. On the contrary, it's the society itself that needs to change. It's man that needs to change. Therefore, we try to give a voice to people who are unheeded. And we try to promote a debate within society. And we see that people change little by little their mindset, their way of thinking. And they stop, for example, thinking that somebody homeless has to be blamed for his or her situation. But these people start to think that homeless are people that need help. This is the greatest victory for us. 6 years ago, before Takìe was established, journalism was totally different in Russia. People would say, but who will ever read a story of some old woman living in Siberia? Who will ever read the stories about migrants? Well, actually, now we have an increasing number of readers and an increasing number of journalists telling the stories of laymen and laywomen. And they increasingly help charity and volunteer associations, because this is the only possible way to change man and society. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. This kind of journalism is very interesting because it is a very useful way to rediscover the value of people, to make us understand people better. So people do have a value. So I'm going to ask Marigona, what is meant for you meeting someone who has helped you to rediscover your value? Good evening to you all. My name is Marigona. I was born in Kosovo 29 years ago. And at the age of 5, I was adopted by an Italian family. Since I was a child, I've always wanted to do great things. I've always wanted to have beauty in my life. I've always wanted to have a lot. And I thought that being happy meant not to suffer, not to feel pain. But this is not true. At the age of 12, when my father passed away for cancer, I felt betrayed by life. I was very angry, extremely angry. And I was convinced that my desire for happiness that I felt inside me was just an illusion, was not possible. Something that I could not deserve, I did not deserve. And then something happened. On the 15th of May, 2007, I was on drugs, and I didn't think about my pain inside. I took a train because I wanted to escape from where I was. And I woke up after a long time, and I was at the terminal, as in at the in Pesaro, at the community called Imprevisto. Imprevisto is a home care community with hosting young people with problems, and this experience has really struck me. The role of my mother was a vital one. When my mother was asked for the first time, she was pretty sure. She understood that on her own she couldn't save me. And therefore, she said to me, I'm gonna give my daughter to you. And with the adoption, that was the biggest gesture of love that parents can have towards their children. Imprevisto was a very hard experience, a very difficult one. They ask you a lot. You're never alone. But it was a very beautiful experience where I felt a wonderful, a very big embrace. Because I felt loved. I felt embraced, especially where I hated myself. And this experience was even more meaningful when, at the end of my life within the community, let's say when I was about 19, I started when I was 14, and I finished at the age of 19. I got in contact with Silvio Catarina, the founder of Imprevisto, that to me is a very important father. And I asked him, I found the beauty here. So, whatever circumstances I'm going to live through, is it possible to have this beauty? And he answered to me, well, if you stop looking at me, everything will stop. But if you look where I'm looking at, then you will do great things. Well, I did not understand immediately because it's an experience, it's not a concept. But this person was a happy person, a grateful person, grateful to life. All the educators within the community are happy people. And we young people look at them and look at their happiness. So every choice I made in my life, as in university, my degree in educational sciences, depended on the fact that I wanted to see whether this beauty, this happiness was also possible for me. In the meantime, I met Luca at university, he's my husband. I got married, and we have a wonderful 3-year-old daughter. So I can say that this experience has enabled me to rediscover who I am, but I rediscovered myself through an encounter. Because through an encounter, every day, I'm rediscovering the value I have. Nothing is useless. Everything has a purpose, especially the pain, the suffering, what life has taken me away has given back to me. Now I'm sure, I'm positive that everything has a meaning and a positive meaning. Thank you.
È solo in un abbraccio che uno può riscoprire.
You can discover that everything is for the good, only in a hug. So Mario, please tell us some stories, some cases of people who, thanks to the work carried out by scholars, reconquer their dignity and are born again. The simplest example I can give you now is, well, what does it mean to rebuild an educational pact? We all talk about this, but let's get to the point. We are engaged in a project regarding 3 juvenile jails in Rome, Naples, and Turin. It is called Zona Luce, light area. And this is a term which belongs to the soccer game. My companion, in order to receive the ball, needs to get free, in a sense, from the adversary. This implies my freedom, the aware, the I who is aware. What does it mean for a person, for a young person living in a jail. How can we have this person understand what it means? Let's work so that young people also become responsible of their future. Let's organize a training for an aid to become an aid of a coach, of a soccer coach. So we resorted to the Federazione Gioco Calcio, the Italian Soccer Federation, the Ministry of Justice, and each institution had a task. It was not a school-based task. The task was analyzing the project, review the project, and reforming and reshaping the project. What does identity mean as a value? How can we have these young people understand it? And the play, soccer, enabled us to do this. One thing is for sure, when we arrived there, they looked at us thinking, who are they? What do they want from us? But after just a few days, the point of view was totally opposite. When are you going to come back? Because that gaze, that sight, and that place generated an encounter. The encounter is still alive today, and we will start our activities again. And the director of the Naples jail, Gianluca, in particular, told us that the novelty of this project is has to do with a bridge we created between the educators, the jail guards, the operators. So the operators played soccer with the young people, and they also received a level E qualification, which is recognized by the FIFA. So an educational pact means that you devote yourself totally to the activity you're carrying out, because the other person is watching you. So Alena, please tell us some stories which impressed you particularly, of people who were born again, also thanks to your work, something which can make us understand how powerful the work you're carrying out can be. Well, today, I remember, I was thinking about some stories. I'm going to tell you some of them. You see on the display a child, and this child is named Chioma. He's very silent, very calm. He loved drawing very much. But then, when he had to go to school, he got a liver cancer. And his parents tried to do what they could, but it was impossible to heal. I was very much impressed by the courage of his family members. They did everything they could in order to save him. And the aid given by the collaborators of the hospice, which is called the Lighthouse, the Deacon, well, to me, it was a terrible story. And the most terrible thing to experience in life is the death of your own child. Indeed, thanks to the help of the people working in the hospice, Chioma spent a whole year in his house with his parents, and he continued to do the things he liked until the very last moment. First of all, drawing. And after 2 weeks, 2 weeks after this article was published, Chioma unfortunately died. And the work of the operators working at the hospice was helping his parents to live through the illness, but also live after the death of Chioma. It is very difficult to find the adequate words to be on the side of these people experiencing such difficulties. Another good experience, another moving experience, was that of Natalia. She was 44. She got the Hodgkin's disease. And she said, she used to say that that was a moment in which she had to start and reduce everything, less pupils, less work, less readings, etc. She only managed to read using a computer with the movement of her eyes. She was an incredible woman, and she started to work in this way. And she is now one of my colleagues. She's a journalist. She is part of a project, and only with her eyes, she continues to work, she continues to write, and she continues to bear witness of how it is possible to remain a human and to remain lively, even if you suffer from these kind of terrible diseases. In the moment in which everything was diminishing, now she has started to have more of everything, more relationships, more colleagues, more work. And this interest for life is what makes her happy. And this makes her a person. And I was very much impressed by this story. Because, finding so much love for life and so much truth of life, to me, was a great lesson of life. Another story which impressed me a lot, which I remember very often, is the story of one of our photographers, Nana Nightman, during the coronavirus pandemic. She was in the red areas, in the areas with all this equipment. She went to the special department units of the hospitals, and she accompanied the physicians with her camera. And the physicians told her, stay there and just watch, don't move. And the impressive thing is seeing that these physicians, all the healthcare workers, the nurses, despite the fatigue, despite how tired they were, always found the possibility and the time to help and to talk with the patients. So it was impossible for her to stay there, just stay there and watch. So she decided to lend a hand along with the healthcare workers, and she took pictures because she wanted to tell all these incredible stories of humanism, of these heroes, and full happiness, even in these apparently inhumane conditions. And in these situations, all the desire for the good of other people and for oneself comes out. And this desire is enclosed in every person. But faced with these stories, I feel a lot of admiration, and I feel that I was given lots of lessons on life and on death and on how to live thanks to these stories. Thank you very much, Alena. So an eye that can be born again, because you hug somebody, then you need to struggle with such a difficult reality. We were talking about the COVID pandemic. Is it possible for the person to face this kind of problems? What happened to you in the period, in the tragedy we all have been experiencing, the pandemic? How did you come to terms with that? Well, it was quite a battle. It was a fight. Especially in this period of pandemic, my desire was that I could realize that there is something good in life. Two very bad events occurred this year, but they were also a sign of something good. The first fact was in January. I was pregnant. After 3 months of pregnancy, I had a spontaneous abortion, so I lost a baby. It was a drama. It was a tragedy for me. The first thing I did while I was in a hospital was calling Silvio. I called Silvio, and he said something important to me. He said, scream, ask for something, because you need to realize and you need to see that there is something good, even in this tragedy. As it happened several years ago, I needed to live an experience. Just as I was young, like I was young. With my husband, Luca, we screamed, we asked for more, and we learned, we understood that we could not manage alone. And we realized that around us, there has always been a good company, a great company. There was a support which cannot be stopped, even not even by the red zone. And this helped us a lot to understand that no suffering is useless. Even when you are suffering so much, what you're living is not in vain. You do not suffer for nothing. After 1 month, my mother got ill of COVID-19, and that was another battle. The first feeling was wrath. I was so enraged. I was so angry about the fact that so many people were suffering, so many people got ill. That was my first human reaction. Then, during that terrible period, she spent 1.5 months in the intensive care unit. On the 5th of April, the day of her birthday, she died. I want to give an example of how my mother's suffering, too, was a testimony to me and to many friends of ours who shared those terrible moments. One day, while I was making a video call from my house with her, she was at a hospital, and I wanted to greet her. I asked her, of course, I hoped that she would heal. So I asked her, what would you like to do? What is the first thing you would like to go as soon as you get out of the hospital? She said, I want to eat a beautiful cassata, Sicilian cassata, which is a typical Sicilian dessert. She had a sweet tooth. And then she thought more about what she wanted to do. And she answered, no, I want to see the sea again. Think about the profoundness of that thought, her desire of beauty, of infinite. And I was very much impressed, because at that time, screaming, sharing the company of other people, and sharing all our feelings with our friends really helps you to look, to raise your gaze, to raise yourself, to look higher. And you realize that there is beauty, and you manage to taste, you manage to understand, and to understand finally that there is something beautiful, even in all this chaos, in this havoc. I don't have any answers. What we are living, what we are all experiencing, makes me realize and makes me say once again that we do have a hope. Hope is always there. And you put your life at play every day. I have another very important thing to tell you. I would like to read something to you. It is very important. It is important. During my mother's funeral, lots of friends took part in my mother's funeral. There was a very moving moment faced with the mystery of life and death. Silvio wrote a very beautiful thing I want to read to you. It also talks about me, but it makes us understand how beautiful life is. Life is forever. It is made for eternity. Otherwise, we would not understand the big love, the tender love, the moving love of a mother towards her daughter. and the moving love of a daughter towards her mother, the way we knew them. Life is certainly for eternity. If we saw so much devotion, so much sacrifice of a mother towards her daughter, life is indeed for eternity. It is really beautiful, forever. If we saw how a daughter loved and the way she made her life big for her mother, how much desire, how many battles a daughter managed to carry out to earn the biggest reward, that of being preferred by the life and by the whole world, to be loved. Oh, eternity, we look for in every breath of ours, at times in a tiresome way. You, eternity, are looking for us. You want us, you help us. You find us, you help us, and you raise us. And these are very beautiful things Silvio wrote for me.
Pensate che
Just think about this human growth. A girl that was at the end of a journey, she was lost. She was lost on drugs. She became a woman, and now she has these deep thoughts. I want to ask another couple of questions to Mario and Alena with very short answers because we don't have much time left. Mario. Marigona told us about her personal experience. What about your personal experience? What do you get from your work with Scholas? Well, I do earn something by working with Scholas. I can look at what I meet with curiosity, to go in depth. What I can earn, what I can get is that I can serve what I encounter, which is not easy, because every one of us already has his or her projects in mind, has already something said. But I learned a word. I learned the word listening and silence. These two words have enabled me to look at things without biases and loving them. And this is something I want to take care of, listening and silence. And this is my character. I'm very curious myself. So I always have the curiosity to go beyond things. And that enables me to go beyond borders. And this is something that I want to keep in my young heart. Because I encounter things, I take care of them, and I follow them. What about you, Alena? What can you learn from your job? How have you changed since you started doing your job? Like before, when I saw some injustice or other people suffering, I cried and I felt totally powerless. I felt in total despair. Now, thanks to my job, I see that something changes. Maybe not much, but still something changes. And I have hope. I live hope. Hope. And this is the most important word, the I and a hope, because the I that comes to life again has hope. Yesterday, Xavier Prada said that the courage to say I stems from human sympathy. Somebody encountering you, meeting you, and embracing you in all your pain. There must be an encounter in order to come to life again. And tonight, I think we have seen three very good examples of human sympathy, which can revamp the I, give humanity back to the I, to the self. And that can also change the world around the I, the self. And we've heard that from the stories of our three guests, whom we thank very much for being with us tonight and for having given us their own personal stories, because they have been able to reconquer their dignity, and sharing their stories means that they've been able to help us, because we will always remember them and their stories. So thank you. Warm thanks to Alena Choperskova. And good luck. Good luck to you all. Just continue with your wonderful job. Thank you. Thank you, Mario del Verme, and thank you to our friends from Scholas. And thank you to Marigona and to the unexpected event that she lived, an imprevisto. Because this is what life can be. And thank you, because you shared with us this session, and please help us. Help us to meet other people like this and other stories like this. Just remember that the meeting is possible thanks to the donations and the contributions from all of us. So if you want and if you can, please help us. Give your own contribution by giving a small donation to the areas, red areas that you see around. They are needed to help us all to continue the meeting. Thank you very much to you all, and see you very soon.
Thank you.